For close to a decade, Lance Armstrong conquered the pain, the terrain, and his adversaries better than any that had come before him. 2010 was to be his glorious exit, a swan song that culminated a career unlike any other. His past exploits could have earned him the title of Mr. July, but this year, in the heat of battle and in the brutal heat, Lance's luck would turn cold. A chance for a record 8th Tour de France title would morph into merely helping teammates and searching for a stage win. But when you're the most recognizable cyclist on the planet, every move is news, not to mention marked by the peloton. Emerging out of the shadow of the most accomplished tour athlete of all time, two men would captivate with their quest to dominate. Alberto Contador is the Grand Master of Grand Tours. From humble beginnings, the Spaniard has reached the pinnacle of his profession. In his quest to reign supreme, this year one man stood above the rest to question his authority, to challenge his claim to the throne. For a few days, Andy Schleck was on top of the world, but the Tour plays no favorites and ultimately chooses the one. Yellow may dominate the headlines, but green gave us drama as well. No one will deny Mark Cavendish is the fastest man on the planet, but caginess and consistency are also part of the equation. Thor Hushovd and Alessandro Petacchi have employed every weapon in their arsenal to keep the Manx missile at bay, and over 3 weeks, that's a ton of ammunition. Petacchi is poised to fulfill a lifelong promise. All that remains is an exclamation point in Paris. Every rider knows dreams and desire will only take you so far. The Tour exists to test each man's limits, breaking point, and capacity to overcome.
Won the yellow jersey today. Let's just trace him quickly from Rotterdam. In the prologue time trial, he wasn't winning, but he was getting the better of what was to be his main rival, Andy Schleck. Onwards to stage 3, the cobblestones of the hell of the north. And this is where he had the trouble with his back wheel. He broke a spoke, and while the leaders were getting clear of him, he was losing a little bit of time. Wasn't happy with that whatsoever. Onwards to stage now number 9 here on the road to Mond, and this is where things were getting really hot as Andy Schleck tried an attack. But he also found he wore himself out and he lost time to Alberto Contador. Look at this. Contador now taking on Schleck in the yellow jersey and taking 10 seconds back of his 41-second time deficit. The gap was now 31 seconds overall. Contador was not looking quite as sharp as he used to, though, one had to admit. Stage 15, as they were coming to the last climb, the Portabalas at the end of the stage, a slip chain for Andy, and Contador went racing on. He was pulling back just a few seconds that would lead eventually to his victory in the Tour de France. Now in the yellow jersey, Contador danced up the slopes of the Col de Tourmalet, the last mountain in this year's race, and goodbye to 100 years of the Pyrenees for this year. Schleck tried everything he could. He kept lifting the pace. Contador answered him and then tried an attack of his own. Schleck had all of the answers. These two boys, there was nothing between them in this year's Tour de France. That's going to become as the next luck in the world of cycling. They came up to the top together. Contador made no effort to beat Andy Schleck, because Schleck had been the man of the day. Seems now they're all friends after the chain incident, so it was off to the time trial, and there was shocks in store again for the last man to start, Alberto Contador, because at the first time check it was 2 seconds advantage Schleck. He was now only 6 seconds behind in the Tour de France. Contador, though, dug deep, found the time that mattered, and today has won the Tour de France by 39 seconds. So all that remained, the happy days. This is when the champagne is shared around the peloton, the champions, his team thanked, and for him, his 3rd Tour de France win. They even attacked together, laughed at each other, shook hands, and said, hey, where's the peloton? When it came down to the sprint, deep in the heart of the pack was the new champion again, Alberto Contador. Now for the prize presentations. First on stage, Paul, it is Mark Cavendish here, this remarkable man. Now, that's a rather nice prize, too.
Well, it looks like a bird that's going extremely fast, and I suppose if we call him the Manx Missile, that's the sort of trophy that he deserves to have, and he was presented there with his prize by Bertrand Delanoë, the mayor of Paris.
Well, Mark Cavendish is never happier than when he's standing on a winner's podium, wherever it is, but in the Tour de France, he is very, very special. Undisputed fastest man in the world. There's nobody can ever disagree with that at the moment. 15 stage wins in 3 Tours de France. Unbelievable.
No, it really is quite phenomenal, the performance of this man. And as you said, Phil, I think as long as he can keep with the team, with the lead-out work that he's got at the moment, he's going to be very difficult to beat for the next 4 or 5 years.
Yes, there he is. And the first man to win the green jersey from Italy since Franco Pitossi 42 years ago. Pataki, well, I remember commentating the first week. He would pack it all in the Alps. Then we changed our commentary. He'll pack it all in the Pyrenees. And once we knew he'd come to the Pyrenees, he was feeling good. This was his target, and he stuck in there. His second place to Cavendish today, more than enough to run out the winner of the green jersey. So the maillot vert. And on the presentation here is Marco Marsili, the minister in charge of business affairs, representing the government here from Italy, and Carciolo Di Vietri. So the Italian dignitary coming on board, welcoming an Italian green jersey winner for the first time in 42 years. It was a great competition this year. Only 3 wearers of it, including Chavanel briefly. Pataki 243 in the end, so getting the better of Mark Cavendish. If he hadn't fallen off into Brussels on that second day of racing, he might have been challenging Pataki even closer. Torhushoff third, Rojas fourth, and Robbie McEwen has won this competition 3 times. In 5th, let's have a look then on the great sprinting ace from Italy. He's 36.5 years of age. He got 1 sprint win in Reims, or Reims, as often it's better to understand the city's name. And then he was in and out of green with some very consistent riding. He's going to be a big boy when he goes back to Italy for the big prize presentations. This will be the prize now to the King of the Mountains. A formality these past 3 days. There haven't been any counting mountains, but he certainly did well in the first 2.5 weeks of the Tour. Anthony Charteau becomes the winner here. And the president of the French Cycling Federation, David Lapatillon, is the man presenting the prize to him. So it's a big moment for Anthony Charteau. He doesn't win a lot of bike races, but he certainly chooses well. He was not a lucky winner. We just assumed he would pass this jersey away to some bigger name in the sport after chasing the small points in the first 10 days. But then he suddenly showed us, once you pull a leader's jersey on, you chase the big points over the first category calls, over the all category calls, and he was winning points there. So he deserves this title. He also leads the French into one of their most successful Tours de France for years, 6 stage wins as well. Let's have a look how he did here. There he is, Anthony Charteau, originally dicing with Jerome Pino, throwing it around a little bit for a while. Took it for a day, Pino got it back, and then finally Charteau got it for keeps. And I think, if I remember rightly, up on the bridge here, the folks, well, we didn't quite see it, but his folks were standing up there on the climb of the Col de Tourmalet. By this stage of the time, he knew he had won the King of the Mountains title. And there's the final standings in the King of the Mountains, same for the past 3 days, 143. Christophe Moreau, the oldest man in the race, alongside Lance Armstrong, riding his 15th and final Tour at 39 years of age, is finishing 2nd today. Schleck was 3rd, Contador 4th. Just by dueling with each other, they were snatching points over the mountain tops. Damiano Cunego of Lampre, same team as Alessandro Pataki, in 5th place. This white jersey of Andy Schleck. He's won it for the 3rd successive year, but when he got that, he was pulling on yellow for a short while. He thought, until he got to Paris, that wasn't to be. But Andy Schleck has proven in these last 3 weeks to be one of the top boys in the world of cycling. That was a slipper chain due to the fact he was on his 38 inside ring and threw it across to the 13 top sprocket, and the angle was so acute and he hit a bump at the same time, his chain came off. It cost him the Tour de France, although his prologue time trial also had a big say in that. It was this climb, though, on the Col de Tourmalet, Paul, that showed us the two best cyclists of the Tour de France. The rest of the Tour de France passed into bit players, and you shouldn't really say that against the greatest bike riders in the world. But these two were left to go head-to-head. There was nothing in it on the top, and Schleck got his second stage win.
I think what was impressive, Phil, was every time either of these two riders attacked, they opened up a massive gap on everybody else in the main field. Andy Schleck about to climb up here to get his award, and it's his just reward as well, and it'll be the last time he wins this, Phil, because next year he's going to be a little bit too old.
And His Royal Highness the Grand Duke Henri de Luxembourg comes on. So for Andy, this is going to be a very proud moment indeed.
And the question, and the rumour mills will be wondering next year, will the team be a Luxembourg team? Because that's what the rumour on the street is, that he and brother Frank will lead a team of Luxembourg. And if you need some financial backing, I'm not sure that that's the wrong place in the world to go, because it is really one of the financial centres of Europe.
So there he is, the white jersey. He equals the record set by Jan Ullrich, who also got 3 white jerseys. Like Jan Ullrich, he won't qualify for a 4th one. Age catches up. He'll be looking for yellow next year for sure. Another year older. If I was Alberto Contador, I would enjoy tonight, because next year we are going to see one terrific battle. Paulie's made so many friends with his attitude to the way he's ridden this race.
I was amazed, Phil, over the last week. That's why I wasn't surprised with the time trial that he rode yesterday, because he had the confidence, and he said to us he had the fire in his belly.
So there's the Young Rider Award. Andy Schleck, #1 in the Young Rider. Guessing, #2. He finished 6th in the race, Guessing. Kreuziger again continues to promote and to climb as a youth. Julien L. Ferrez, a good position for him in 4th. Cyril Gauthier. But look at the time gaps on the right. Andy Schleck head and shoulders above the rest. It's a marvellous occasion. Look, we've had some wonderful stories coming from him over the whole of the 3 weeks of the Tour de France. But now he deserves the accolade he gets here. 39 seconds the victory, the 5th lowest victory in the history of the Tour. Today we saw them make true friends again. It was a real competition, Craig, and it was a great one.
I think it was a fantastic battle, you know, Craig, over the last few days, and it really kept the passion in the Tour de France right up until the ultimate time trial, when we saw, I think, Alberto Contador look vulnerable for the first time possibly in his whole career, because when he got that first time check at 18 kilometres and he was 2 seconds slower than Andy Schleck, he must have thought, uh-oh, Tour de France is going out of the window.
Absolutely. He had a big scare in the time trial. He was able to match Andy Schleck. We knew it would be a tough battle from a lot of rivals, but in the end of the Tour, it was just Schleck versus Contador for that final yellow jersey. Contador prevailed, but it was a lot closer than I think he's comfortable with.
Absolutely right, Bob. I think he was really worried yesterday. He really believed he was about to lose that time trial. I must confess, Paul, I thought he was.
Well, I've never seen him ride in a time trial and move his position quite as much as he did. He was going to the front of the saddle, trying to go back to get the power, and he really couldn't get it going. But Lance Armstrong out there having a look up, and a little while he'll be able to go up to the podium in his last appearance at the Tour de France as well. But, you know, Armstrong, I think, will be quite happy now, Bob, I think, to retire from the sport.
It was a very difficult Tour de France. Let's make no mistake about that. One of the hardest we've seen mountains-wise throughout my time commentating on it, and that man was the strongest of the whole Tour, Alberto Contador. But a great ride by Armstrong as well.